Hey all, welcome back to another episode of Car Topics Explained. Today we will be delving into hybrid hypercar territory. Yes, that's right, we will actually be talking about the car that became my first favorite supercar hypercar ever. Before I discovered this car, it was all about ordinary Japanese and European sports cars for me. But that all changed when I watched an episode of Top Gear where Jeremy Clarkson reviewed the McLaren P1. Unveiled on the 27th of September in 2012, the world got to lay their eyes on the McLaren P1 for the very first time. The car's name has some obvious inspiration from the legendary McLaren F1, but the name is also derived from P1, being your position on the racing grid. And so, first place is where you want to be, and I would be very surprised if this car didn't make you feel like a winner. And let's dive into which, in my opinion, is the best part of the all-around brilliant car. Its powertrain. Designated as M838TQ, the P1 is powered by both a 3.8-liter twin-turbocharged V8 and an electric motor. The V8 makes 727 horsepower and the electric motor makes 177, which when put together makes a grand total of 903 brake horsepower. And the reason why this is so special is because this hybrid car isn't about being better for the environment. No, this is all about figuring out how to use hybrid technology to be better for racing.
The power of the dark side.
That's like weaponizing a wind farm.
So what does all that translate to? Well, a 2.8 second 0 to 60, a 9.8 second quarter mile, an electronically limited 217 mile per hour top speed, which is insane because it takes only 23.2 seconds to get from 0 to 200. There is one other thing you should know about how the powertrain is set up. The P1 uses a technique called torque filling. Basically, whenever the engine isn't at full power, for example during a gear change or whenever the turbos aren't at full boost, the electric motor will make up for that and fill in the gaps. This improves power delivery and the rate of acceleration whether you put your foot down at a standstill or if you do it from a roll. As for handling, well, it's a proper hypercar with all sorts of aerodynamic witchcraft. I'm not going to pretend to be an expert, but it does have things like DRS, straight out of Formula 1, carbon ceramic brakes, Pirelli tires, and depending on which mode the car is in, parts of the body will move and change position based on how it is being driven. In fact, the race mode the car has isn't road legal because it lowers the car so aggressively and has been seen to scrape the surface of some tracks and even cause sparks. The car is also a member of the hybrid hypercar Holy Trinity, alongside the Porsche 918 and the LaFerrari. But wait, there's more. Let's say you have a few million lying around. You want a P1, but you need something a little more special. Well, only 375 P1 road cars were made. But if you want a little more car for the track, you could always get one of the 58 race car versions, which receive the name McLaren P1 GTR. The car's power is increased with the twin-turbo V8 making 789 horsepower and the electric motor making 197, which totals out to 986 brake horsepower. Some other big differences are changes to the aerodynamics with the massive fixed rear wing, which still has DRS, a fixed ride height, a titanium exhaust, and overall the car is 110 pounds lighter than the road car. The car is also nuts to look at. But it doesn't stop there. The McLaren P1 doesn't only follow in the footsteps of the McLaren F1 by having a road car and a race car version of the road car. Oh no. There must also be a road car version of the race car. Back in 1995, 5 McLaren F1s were built to be based off of the McLaren F1 GTRs. These were the McLaren F1 LMS. And so, a company called Lanzante took 6 new McLaren P1 GTRs, converted them to be road legal, sold 5 to the public, and kept 1 for themselves. For research and development, obviously. These are the P1 LMs. Essentially, modified P1 GTRs. They've upgraded the drivetrain to improve power delivery and output. They've given it a new rear wing, a new front splitter, a new titanium exhaust with Inconel catalytic converters and headers. By the way, I had to look up Inconel, and apparently it's a superior metal to even titanium when it comes to exhaust. So that's cool. I learned something. The car is also 132 pounds lighter than the P1 GTR, making it 242 pounds lighter than the road car. And get this, the engine of the P1 LM is 4 liters instead of 3.8, which to me increases the exclusivity of the car because yes, while the engine in the P1 road car is bespoke, the P1 GTR engine is higher performance, and yet the engine in the LM is even rarer. So like I said before, if you've got several $1 million lying around and the P1 isn't enough of a track toy for you, but you still want to legally drive on the road, then the P1 LM is for you. One final fun fact about the P1 LM. At the Nürburgring, the car achieved a lap record of 6 minutes and 43.22 seconds. Now that is pretty incredible for a road-legal car. That's faster than the Aventador SVJ, the 911 GT2 RS, Radical SR8 LM, and the Huracan Performante. Unfortunately though, the car used for the lap time didn't have a front plate, which made it not road legal at the time, and therefore does not hold the street legal record. But we all know better. Either way, the P1, no matter which version you're talking about, is undeniably fast. And McLaren announced that the road car also achieved a sub 7-minute lap time, but didn't release what it was specifically. There was also a car commissioned by a Lansante customer to build a P1 inspired by the F1 GT homologation car. It featured increasingly aggressive bodywork, such as a big wing, larger splitter, longer rear end, vented fenders, and all sorts of things. That said, not much is known about this one-of-a-kind unit. And that, everyone, is all we have time for today regarding the McLaren P1. The car that got me interested in the hypercar supercar world in the first place, and basically the gateway drug that opened my mind up to lots of crazy cars. However, I think we can all agree that much like the F1, this car has earned its place in history. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have enjoyed this video and found it both entertaining and informative. This video could have been so much longer given how complicated this car is, so I hope I covered the coolest parts. If you like this video and want to see others like it, then check out my series, Car Topics Explained. I have covered a ton of movie cars, various race cars, rare cars, recently delved into video games, and lots of content about importing vehicles into the US. Beyond that, I do vlogs, car reviews, I have a series documenting my adventures buying and modifying my own cars, and I do gaming. So if any of that interests you, then have a peruse through my channel, and hey, if you're extra cool, then maybe even subscribe. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. I, Tom, the Racing Joker, will be signing out. Keep it crazy.